Hi everybody and welcome to McNulty's Book Corral. Today we're doing something of an update episode on an author I previously covered. You'll remember my episode about Wake of the Red Witch and Reap the Wild Wind. Well, Wake of the Red Witch was written by, as I mentioned, Garland Roark. And today's episode is about Garland Roark, who was born in 1904 and died in 1985. Wake of the Red Witch, I'm not going to go over again. We discussed that. I do own 2 copies of the book. I can't help myself, I know. Garland Roark is really a fascinating writer. This is old school novel writing, and I'll explain that hopefully with a little better clarity in a moment. There's nobody in the United States that I'm aware of that can write like this. Garland Roark was an excellent teller of tales, really wonderful. Wake of the Red Witch is a good place to start if you're interested in diving into his style. He's really fun. I want to cover 4 other books of his, and there's some very interesting things that he did here. These are all sea tales. I love sea tales. When they're told well, there's nothing like it. It's really not a genre or a subgenre. It's a subgenre of adventure novels or thrillers. There's really not a lot that goes on now, with the exception of the late, great Clive Cussler, who wrote many sea tales, and he was probably the last great one as far as I'm concerned. There may be some others here and there, but it's not the type of thing that goes on in the world of fiction. Everybody's into this other stuff. So Garland Roark wrote many books, and let's take a look at Fair Wind to Java. This was made also into a very popular film. And again, I will have scans of these. I'm trying to do more of that for you that like to look at these covers in detail. Now, let's talk about the covers, by the way. There's an interesting history to these covers that we're going to talk about. Garland Roark, this is Doubleday. Fair Wind to Java was published by Doubleday. If you take a look at that, you can see right here there's a bare-breasted woman. It's not blatant, which we're going to get into the blatant stuff in a minute. Nudity by itself was not unusual in the first half of the last century, but by the time these books were written and published, more of a conservative tone had taken over the publishing industry, and it wasn't done as often. It was really done quite frequently in the early part of the century. So this is not as blatant as some. This book was published in 1949. Wake of the Red Witch was published in 1946. Excellent book, by the way. I like the book better than the movie. That's not unusual. So if you get a chance to check out Fair Wind to Java, any of the Garland Roark, look at his books are always about the same length. They're thick. There is small print, so you have some work to do here when you're going to read these. This is, again, old school novel writing. The writing is dense. It's detailed. There's a lot of minute details you'll find relating to what the characters are doing, their internal monologues, their dialogue, their motivations. Very meticulous writing. But it works. It works because Garland Roark was a really superb storyteller. And I'm quite fond of his novels. I have it in my mind to really collect everything that he did. We'll talk about some of the other stuff in a moment, maybe at the end. So, Wake of the Red Witch, Fair Wind to Java. Then we're going to get into a really interesting book. This is 1952, Slant of the Wild Wind. Now, does that sound familiar? And this does have a saucy cover. I call them saucy covers, which I understand from some female viewers they find that offensive. I don't mean to be offensive. It's saucy, I'm just being a man. It's the way it is. All right. You have a bare-breasted woman on the cover. What would you call it? I don't know. Anyways, sometimes people are too sensitive these days for their own good. Slant of the Wild Wind. Let's start with the title. Reap the Wild Wind, which has been compared to Wake of the Red Witch continuously from the time of its publication, and Reap the Wild Wind, of course, was not written by Garland Roark. Go back and look at my episode on Reap the Wild Wind and Wake of the Red Witch. So the comparisons are there. It's interesting that he chose just some years later to kind of do a variation on Reap the Wild Wind with Slant of the Wild Wind. I don't think it's very clever. It is, however, a very good book. It's Garland Roark from Texas, by the way. Why is it that all the writers I encounter from Texas are great writers? What are you guys feeding yourselves down there? What is it? Is it the beef? I don't know. I've been to Texas, by the way. I love Texas, so I hope to go back in the next few years. Anyways, Garland Roark, Slant of the Wild Wind. Now, this cover with the bare-breasted woman, this was censored. This is the only copy I have with the uncensored version. It was published, and fairly quickly, from what I can determine, the artwork was changed so that her breast was covered with the cloth, the robe fitting it, and that's the edition that you can find fairly easily. Finding this edition, the uncensored version, is becoming harder and harder, and it is a bit of a collector's item here. It would be more of a collector's item if Garland Roark was still held in high esteem as he was during his lifetime. People don't really read him anymore, and that is a shame. However, I hope that this video will encourage you to do so. So interesting to look for this in the uncensored version. You'll find the censored version is out there. It's a good book. That's the important thing. This is trivia that I'm sharing with you. A little spicy idea here and there doesn't hurt anybody. Throw a little salt and pepper on it and see what you get. So, anyways, I'm really fond of Garland Roark and his style and the way he tells a tale. Really good writer. So here's another one. Fairwind the Java. Then go into Slant of the Wild Wind. Any edition you can find. A lot of these are available in paperback. And then we're going to go to 1953. The year following that, he published The Wreck of the Running Gale. Another sea tale and another dust jacket with a bare-breasted island girl on the cover. This one, as far as I know, was not censored. I'm not clear why Slant of the Wild Wind was censored and why this wasn't. These are all Doubleday books, so I don't get that. I found no bibliographic reference to that. Perhaps somebody knows. I don't know. Maybe there's something in his personal files relating to that. I don't know. I don't really know a lot about him except I like his books. So, Wreck of the Running Gale. Thematically, these books share a little bit with Wake of the Red Witch, but with a lot of variations. These are sea romances. These are romance novels of the seven seas. Okay, the island girls, the schooners, all of this, the ships, etc. The heroic, shipmates and captains, etc. Great picture of him on the back, by the way. What a great writer. Again, I hope to collect everything that he published in first edition hardcovers with the dust jackets at some point. And we're going to end with 1962, The Witch of Mangariva, which does not quite have the same saucy type cover on it. I know you're tired of hearing it, but whatever. But this is really a good book too. This one is billed as a South Sea romance. They all are. He has many other books on the market. If you can find them, check them out. Again, I'm in the process of really looking for nice editions, first edition hardcovers with the dust jacket. And I'm really quite fond of Garland Roark. What a great storyteller. You open these up and you just dig into the story. Now, Garland Roark also wrote Westerns. I'm going to cover the Westerns in a different episode at a later date. His Spur Award-winning Western was Hellfire Jackson. And he wrote a couple of others, too. I haven't read all of his Westerns, but I've read a few. Again, he was a really good writer, which is not unusual for the writers that I read that come from Texas, and you can run off a nice list of them, and there's a lot of great writers out there from Texas. So if you get a chance, check out Garland Roark. This is kind of a update to the Reap the Wild Wind and Wake of the Red Witch episode relating to the books and films, both of which starred John Wayne. I wanted to do an episode just about Garland Roark because Garland Roark deserves your attention. Wonderful writer, and I hope that encourages you to seek out some of these books. Until next time, stay well and read a book.